Okay, hello, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to take you guys through the game that won the British Chess Championship. First, I'm going to set the scene. FIDE master Harry Greve heads into the final round of the British Chess Championship with 6.5 points, leading the tournament. The man in second is Grandmaster Nicholas Pert, who is on 6 points, such that if they both drew their games, Harry would win the championship. However, GM Pert is not only the highest rated player in the tournament, but also has the white pieces against a player significantly lower rated than him. So realistically, this is a must-win game for Harry. Harry Greve, the protagonist of this story, has the black pieces against international master Matthew Wadsworth in this last round. Now, fortunately for us spectators, having the black pieces and needing to win tends to make for a tactic fest, a really exciting and sharp game, which is exactly what we get. So let's get into the game. Wadsworth opens with the English, and Harry responds with e6, the Agincourt defense, so named after the 15th century battle between the English with c4 and the French e6, very cleverly named there. Wadsworth plays g3, preparing to fianchetto that bishop, to which Harry responds with d5, and after bishop g2, c6, building up that pawn chain here against the g2 bishop. After knight f3, Harry grabs that pawn on c4, but then there's this move knight a3, showing a really cool bit of preparation and a cool bit of theory in the Agincourt defense, because after b5, defending that c-pawn, white has a tactic here. Knight takes b5, and after c takes b5, knight to g1. And this is theory, believe it or not, because black is now unable to prevent the loss of this rook here on the a8 square. Harry, fully aware of this theory, plays bishop d7, and after the bishop takes the rook, we see knight c6, the bishop takes the knight, and the bishop recaptures here. Stockfish actually only evaluates this position as +1. Despite black being down the exchange here, there is a lot of compensation. That compensation includes the fact that they've got a lot of space expanding here on the queen side. Also, knight f6 and bishop c5, there is rapid development. In contrast to this bishop on c1 and the fact that the knight went back to g1, white's position is looking very passive, and black has a nice bishop pair. Wadsworth plays knight to f3, obviously preventing the loss of this rook here, to which Harry just develops his knight. And then after b2 and bishop c5, bishop b2 here, Wadsworth fianchettoing his dark square bishop, as this c4 pawn here makes it a bit harder to play in and through the center. Queen to d5 here, Harry getting very aggressive, and after a trade of these pawns here and bishop takes f6, we see g takes f6. Now for me, this is the defining position of the game. I want you guys to stop and just have a little look at what is going on here. I mean, we've got terrible pawn structure for black, but when you have bad pawn structure, generally that means there are also open files, which you will obviously see this rook makes the most of, as well the hyper-developed bishop pair and the very centralized queen make for some really exciting tactical ideas. After Wadsworth plays queen to c2, we actually see these ideas straight away as Harry plays just king e7, lifting that king into the nice little alcove here created by that weird pawn structure, and giving the rook access to the whole back rank, maybe to go to the b file, maybe to go to the g file, who knows, but it's very flexible and very sharp. After rook to c1 from Wadsworth, we see bishop a3 kicking the rook, and we see quite a bit of shuffling here with rook b1, bishop back to d6, queen to c3 here, queen e4, just tweaking little bits in the position, this queen putting pressure on the rook here, so the rook goes back to c1, bishop d5 as well, securing this pawn now. You could argue that this bishop is quite improved. It is now a very stable piece that ties together a lot of black's position. And after queen a5, going in to try and threaten this pawn, we see the rook come all the way across to a8. Quite passive for now, however, it can easily move, it's easily very flexible, and let's just not lose this pawn with check, because that might be too much to give away to still have hopes of winning the game. Here, Wadsworth plays king to f1, which seems like a bit of a strange move. Maybe why not castle, until you realize he kind of needs to hold on to the e2 pawn. However, maybe it's good to run to g2 with the king to try and mobilize these rooks across the back rank. However, the second Wadsworth commits to this king move, going towards the king side, Harry lashes out. f5 straight away, ready to try and break stuff open, and after h4, trying to prevent this idea with maybe Wadsworth sees the idea of h5, h4 coming and doesn't want to break all this up, wants to just tuck the king away, bring the rooks out, and be safe here on the dark squares. Well, we see queen to g4, putting pressure on that knight here, maybe threatening to play bishop takes, and after pawn takes, queen takes, there could be some considerable problems in the position there, with maybe rooks hanging, and also there's ideas that this pawn is pinned to the king, all sorts here. After Wadsworth plays queen to c3, just stabilizing this knight here on f3 a little, Harry just lashes out even further, f4, trying to break open this position here. And this is exactly what we see. After Wadsworth takes the pawn, I mean, what else is he going to do? The threat there was to take the pawn, even for Harry. Harry just plays rook to g8, getting on that g-file, and after king e1 running back away, queen to g1 is not checkmate before you lot go and blunder your queen. The knight does hold g1. However, bishop takes f4 now, picking up that pawn, and all of a sudden this is looking so scary. Wadsworth goes for queen to a3 check, and the king just goes into f6, venturing into the position. A must-win game means let's use all of the pieces to attack, including the king. Harry follows up the move rook to f1 with rook d8, threatening this idea of, you know, bishop takes here, and if the pawn or queen recaptures, then the bishop is going to be set up onto that d2 square. Wadsworth goes for queen c3 check, trying to exploit the active king. Harry continues to push forward with this move e5, another pawn coming into the attack with this very passive king. None of these pawns have moved at all, and this rook, I mean, is stuck behind the f pawn. What is going on here? Rook to g1 attacking the queen means that Harry has to just take a step back here to h5, maintaining this pressure along this diagonal though. And after queen to a5, we see rook d7, just a nice move here, securing the few loose pawns on f7, on a7, preventing white's infiltrating ideas as well, with maybe, you know, queen c7. It's just a very nice stabilizing move. Queen to a6 check, and the king finally takes a little step back into the safety of the rook that is covering the 7th rank. Queen to a3 check again, king f6, let's go back. And after king f6, we see a bit of shuffling around, which does seem a bit random, but Harry subtly sets up a brilliant idea here. So we see rook c2, we see queen f5, putting pressure on that rook, you know, rook b2, bishop e6, pieces just sort of rejigging themselves in the middle of the board. Queen c3, h6 here, rook b5, and queen e4, getting the queen to a super central square, making room for the bishop on f5 as well. And after king to d1, this king is trying to run out of all of this pressure directly in the center. We do see bishop f5, which, I mean, just look at this bishop pair. Rook to b2 here, and Harry has positioned his queen ideally on e4. Why is this positioning so ideal for the queen, you may ask? Well, it puts pressure on this knight, and that's not at all clear why it's relevant until you realize that bishop, queen, pawn, and rook all see this d3 square where the light squares are super weak. The combination of all of this allows Harry to play the crazy rook to d3, attacking the queen here. Wadsworth takes it, and then you see the relevance of the queen pressuring the knight, because queen takes knight here, the king moves, and bishop takes d3. Look at this. The evaluation in this position is 0-0. It is 0.0. This is one of the most dynamic 0.0 positions I've ever seen. At this point, Harry has traded both bishops for both rooks and has one pawn materially as compensation for that. However, chess fans will understand that this bishop is brutal. It dominates the light squares around the king. It is outposted by this pawn and cannot be removed by E or C pawns because they do not exist anymore. So Wadsworth goes for rook b4, putting pressure on this C pawn here because, you know, if he can maybe sacrifice back the exchange, he's going to be doing really well in this position. And, you know, he's scared of this bishop, immediately trying to get rid of it. But here, Harry, relentless. Queen takes f2, picking up the pawn. Rook goes back to h1 because it's attacked. h5. Now, h5 looks like a bit of a weird move, but rook a4, putting pressure on the pawn, and a5. And the point is here that if rook takes a5, then queen b6 hits the rook and threatens checkmate on the b1 square. So Wadsworth brings his rook back in here, obviously very scared of this pressure across the diagonal here on the d2 square. Harry goes queen b6 anyway, threatening mate. Queen b2, blocking the mate, and queen c5 here, cementing the loose pawns in the position and leaving black with a very cramped position. And surprisingly few appealing moves. So the rook steps back here, and after this, we see Harry begin the ingenious plan of activating, well, I mean, this is a great piece. This is a great piece. This is a great piece. Let's activate the king. King f5, bringing the king into the game. This is one of my favorite moves of the whole game. It's just so funny. White is just cramped in this part of the board here, and the king just steps forward. Beautiful stuff. Queen to c3 here, however then queen b5 threatening the mate again, drawing the queen back to b2, and after queen c6, I mean, just this move is beautiful. Harry is flexing on his opponent here. He doesn't need to go back to c5. He doesn't need to hold this pawn, because if the rook does take this pawn, the move c3 just crushes the game on the spot. Threatens to take the queen, threatens to take the pawn here with discovered check and mate. I mean, the fragility of White's position is crazy. So queen c3 again, trying to stop that move c3, and f6, bringing the pawn in, you know? I mean, the play over here, we've just frozen White's position. So Harry lets his a5 pawn drop now to the queen to pursue these connected pawns, advancement up the board. After queen b7, threatening that mate on the b1 square again, this is where Wadsworth decides, I've had enough of this bishop, let's get rid of it. I am not happy about that. However, here, queen c3, going back to prevent any checks here to go in and mate the king. We see queen a6, holding this pawn, sorry about that, holding this pawn and attacking this pawn here. Queen b3, defending this pawn, and Harry's investment in tempo over here in the f and e files just comes back to life with king to e4, bringing the king in again. After a4, we see king to f3, just marching the king into the position. I mean, this is beautiful. Bringing the king, ready to bring it to e2. And this was actually Wadsworth's last chance to play the move queen b5 check, actually, and maintain the 0-0 evaluation. However, he plays the fairly intuitive rook to e1, not trying to allow the king here. Now the advantage is completely on Harry's side. King to f2. The king has made it to the second rank and is attacking in this endgame where queens, rooks, and bishops are still on the board. Rook to e4 here, f5. Just get out of this file. You can't stay on it. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. The rook moves. The king is going to be able to gain access to that e2 square after solidifying this pawn chain. And look at the problems here on d2. After the move a5, Harry just slides across to h6, and look at the problems on these dark squares. I mean, what can you do about this? King b1 is tried, bishop takes here, the queen moves, queen to e6, threatening the rook. Look at these three connected pass pawns. After rook c5, putting pressure on this pawn, supporting this pawn here as well, because I mean, that is really White's only chance, is maybe hoping to queen this pawn. We just see the pawns get pushed. f4, queen b3, f3, rook e5, the queen steps aside, a6, but hang on, it's all well and good black promoting their f pawn, but White's a pawn is making a dash for it. We see f2, this race here, rook to f5, going behind this pawn, then bishop e3, securing the pawn, queen b2 check, d2, and we've got two pawns ready to promote, both supported by the king. Wadsworth plays a7. Well, I mean, he's hung his rook, but if black takes the rook, then promotes to a queen. So, okay, well, we've established black can't take the rook, which is exactly what Harry does, taking the rook, and after queen on a8, we see queen on f1. There are 4 queens on the board in the final of the British Chess Championship. Harry makes his own queen here, taking the total number of queens to 5, because you are a queen if you are still watching this video. The king goes to a2 here, queen e6 check, king a3, bishop c5 check, just bullying this weak king here. This king's somehow safe. King a4, queen c4 check, the king moves to a5, and now I'm going to give you a second. There are quite a few wins in this position. I want you to find the most flashy, the most beautiful, and the one that, of course, Harry played to finish this masterclass. Harry Greave plays the brilliant queen a1 check. I mean, what is that? Just throwing away the queen, so that after queen b4, the king moves, and queen b6, That is checkmate by force. It was actually mate in 7 from 7 moves ago. Harry playing it perfectly. What a flashy win. What a beautiful win. And what a game. A FIDE Master winning the British Chess Championship with like 8 other Grandmasters in the pool. Very, very impressive stuff. Yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like. If you're new, subscribe, leave a comment. I always really appreciate all the comments you guys leave. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. What a game, what a tactic. Goodbye.